Hello again. A subscriber named Luis asked a good question. So the problem I have with the poor man's covered call is how to manage the position when the underlying goes down. Should I keep selling calls with the risk that it may bounce back and leave me with no chance to roll for a credit? What is your take on this? How do you manage the position? Well, first of all, the poor man's covered call is a bullish strategy. It's very directional. If you get a big drawdown, then it means that the stock has violated your directional assumption. So you have to ask yourself the big question: do I even want to stay in the trade? Speaking for myself, no, I probably wouldn't. So anyway, what I like to do, I like to use shorter dated, smaller delta long calls than the traditional leaps. So the correct poor man's covered call uses very long dated, deep in the money leaps, like 1 year to expiration and 85 delta. So basically synthetic stock. So when do I like to exit? I like to exit the trade when the share price falls to around the strike of the long call. So why is that? It's because when you're long an option and it falls to 50 delta, that's where you have maximum extrinsic value, and you want to sell extrinsic value. So you're maximizing salvaging the proceeds from your long option. So also, since the implied volatility rises typically when the stock price falls, your long option will have some extra intrinsic value when you sell it. So here's an example of how I might trade a poor man's covered call with kind of my non-traditional approach. So my long call has 120 days to expiration. It's $20 in the money with a delta of about 65, and it cost me $33.88. Short call has 30 days of expiration and is $2 out of the money with a 48 delta. I would get $9.33 of premium for selling this. And again, this is where I kind of go against the grain. I prefer to sell options that are a little closer to at the money, whereas orthodoxy tells you to sell them at 30 delta. But just go with my assumption for a minute. Okay, so let's say that over the next month, the SPY falls $20 from 438 to 418. So instead of doing a bunch of Black-Scholes modeling, let's just do a quick modeling. I want to find a proxy for my long call, and proxy means replacement. So I want to find an option today, so I can look it up in the options chain, that simulates what my long call would do a month from now after the SPY falls by $20. So the proxy option is 90 days to expiration because a month has passed, and the original was 120. The proxy option is at the money because SPY fell by $20 and the original long call was $20 in the money. So pretty simple. So that proxy long call today is worth $17.77. Now let's compute the net from example one. So we paid $33.88 for the long call, sold it for $17.77, and got $9.33 from the original premium. And I assume for simplicity that I allowed the short call to expire worthless. So the net here was a loss of $6.78. Okay, so now let's look at example two, which is a more traditional poor man's covered call setup. We buy a 350 long call with 330 days expiration. That's $88 in the money. Delta's about 84, and it costs about $100. And we're going to use the same short call as we did in example one. The idea here would be as you would roll it every month, but in this case we're going to exit the trade because we had a big drawdown. So again, we assume that the SPY falls $20 in a month's time. That proxy long call for example two is a 370 December 16th call with about 300 days to expiration, and which is $68 in the money. So that's now 80 delta, and it's worth about $82. We again assume that the short call expires worthless. Now let's compute the net of poor man's covered call example two. We paid $98.98 for the long call, sold the long call for $81.79, and gained $9.33 of premium from selling the short call. So the net is a loss of $7.86. We lost more than over $1 more than the in example one that used a much cheaper long call and tied up about 3 times less cash in the trade. So comparing example one and two to just owning 100 shares of stock, you can see that the poor man's covered call offers some nice drawdown protection. Of course, that assumes that you don't over leverage yourself by entering 3 or 4 poor man's covered call contracts. Most people over leverage themselves because it's so easy to do. Anyway, I show pretty convincingly that by using the short-dated, smaller delta long calls in your poor man's covered call setup, you have even more downside protection than the typical poor man's covered call setup, with a pretty similar upside. So another reason for making this video is to illustrate the concept of these proxy options to understand what an option might be worth in the future after a price move. It's not as fancy as actual modeling, but for back of the envelope kind of intuition, it works really well, and it's maybe something that you'd be interested to. So anyway, just a short video. Let me know what you think, and hopefully Luis got answers to his questions, or at least my answer. There's no one answer. There's many answers to his question. Everybody has a different strategy. This is mine. Okay, see you later.